Hey there, old guy back again. Hope you're having an awesome day. Thanks for tuning in. Thought I'd give you a little initial impression of the HX Stomp that I just got. Over the last week, I was able to start digging into it and tried some of the presets. And overall, I'm super impressed with this little device. Just to give you an idea, my first kind of foray into digital modeling was way back in 1991 with the Zoom 9002, which came out in 1989. And that device was an absolutely incredible little piece of technology for the time. The effects were amazing, and it did an incredible job of emulating amps and cabs. And it was just incredible, especially through earphones. It was mostly an effects processor if you wanted to use it in front of the amp, but you could also use it with ear or headphones, which is what I did, and really have a blast playing around with it. Fast forward to 10 years ago when I had the Axe 2, uh, and about 10 years ago. And that was really a revelation for me. You could really everything in a box, and it was a rack size, and now it's a little bit bigger. And I think the Axe 3 is $2,500. Well, the HX Stomp is $600, and if you take a hard look at it, it's got all the helix effects in it. It's got amps and cabs. You can load IRs into it. Uh, Now, the difference between the HX Stomp and the full blown Helix is how many processing chips it has. So, the HX Stomp just has one processing chip, one DSP. So, you're somewhat limited in how many blocks you can use. And they've done something really wise where they put together an amp and a cab into one block if you want. You don't have to, but instead of using an amp block and a cab block, they've put them together so it only takes up one of the six blocks. Now, for my purposes, I won't really need anything more because I don't use really spacey effects or ambient stuff, which is what a lot of people are saying is the negative of the HX Stomp because you can't put a bunch of blocks in there. Whereas with the full blown Helix, you can. That being said, if you have the HX Stomp, you can get Helix Native for your Mac or PC for much less. I think it's $99, and it's actually on sale now for $69. So if you want to use that, you can just use the HX Stomp as an interface and use everything in the Helix Native within your computer. Uh, Now, playing around with it, I really haven't dived into the amps much or the cabs much. But the effects on the presets are absolutely incredible. The modulation effects are so rich and sound so great. One of the distortion blocks available is what they call a Minotaur, which is basically the Klon Centaur, and it sounds great. And when you put it in front of the amp, it really has that Klon overdrive sound. So it's really quite amazing. The delay sounds are really nice. One of the interesting things they did with the presets is the factory presets. They put a bunch of different presets in there, but they're not all direct presets. So they put some presets in there if you want to use just the effect. So if you're using it in front of an amp or if you're using it through an effects loop, then they have a bunch of presets that I would use that have all the amps, cabs, and all the effects. Then they have the four cable method presets. They also have bass presets in there. They have keyboard presets. So it's not really just a bunch of presets like in the Axe effects that are designed specifically just for the guitar and just as an almost like an interface type of situation. That's good and bad because the what they call direct presets, which is the ones that have the amp cab and all the effects, um, they're not quite as varied as what you would find in the Axe effects, and that could be good or bad depending on how much experience you have with modelers. For me, it's not a big deal because I don't really care about the factory presets. I know I'm going to just build a bunch of presets on my own. But if you're a complete newbie and you're looking at this and then you're trying these presets, they're not great. They're not really usable in a gigging situation. They're just really to show you what the device can do, which is basically what every modeling company does. That's one of the reasons I'm not crazy about recommending these types of modelers to complete newbies in the guitar area and effects and amp kind of areas, because you really have to have a working knowledge of amps, cabs, the sounds you like, the sounds you don't like, what the amps actually sound like to really make the most of it. Can a newbie start with something like this? Of course, it's just a really, really, really steep learning curve. For somebody like me who's had modelers for years and years and who had something like an Axe for so long, it's really not much of an issue because you just dive right in, you know where to go. A great example of that is when I started up with the presets, they really sounded, some of them sounded super trebly, some of them sounded super bassy, and I knew that I could either adjust that in the actual preset itself through the various settings of the amp and the cab, or I could, if I wanted to change all the presets, I knew that there was a global EQ that I could use. Now, somebody who's never even heard of that will go like, "What even is that?" But that's the way to kind of navigate around these modelers. So it is something to keep in mind. I will tell you that some of the presets sound amazing. There's a preset for like a Dire Straits kind of sound, which sounds really, really good. There's an Andy Summers preset that really sounds like Andy Summers. I mean, if you play it on a Telly or a Strat, it really has that sound that you heard on those early Police records. So that was kind of really cool. There's an Eric Johnson preset that I think, again, on my system, it sounded a little trebly and a little bassy. If I just tweak the EQs a little bit, I could really get a somewhat authentic Eric Johnson sound. So it just basically highlights what you can do with a unit like this. Now, once again, it's an extremely powerful tool. I don't think that I will make the most of it like I did with the Axe effects, but it is something I'm looking forward to starting to tweak. And once I start diving in and making my own presets and whatnot, I'll share some recordings of that with you. One thing I do want to point out, because this came out actually on our Facebook Helix group that I just joined for the HX Stomp, what the difference is between the cabs in there and IRs is most of the time when you buy cabs to load into a unit like this, you can change the different microphones, you can adjust the positioning of the microphones really to get your unique sound out of the cabs. When you buy an IR, or also known as an impulse response, you're actually buying a pros version of a cab, but with all of that already set up for you. So you're not able to move, in most cases, you're not able to move the microphone around. You're not able to change which mic you want to use for the cab itself. So that's an important distinction. So the cabs that are loaded into the HX Stomp, you can actually move the microphone around. You can change which microphone you're using. Whereas if you buy an impulse response and load it in to put in front of an amp, you can't do that. It's already been done by the professional who recorded the IR. So far, I think it's a no-brainer price-wise. I mean, it's $600, but it's just incredible how much they packed into this tiny little thing, and it's small. You saw. I'll show you a picture of what the rig looks like, but it's really small for what it is. Some people also mention that it's kind of limiting button wise because there's only three buttons on the front of the unit, but you can certainly add more foot switch buttons by buying your own and incorporating them into the pedal. The pedal allows you to do that. You can also do an expression pedal. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this little synopsis of the HX Stomp. I'm certainly going to get more into it with time. If you did enjoy this, please go ahead and give me the thumbs up like. That'd be awesome. If you like what the channel has to offer, please go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you again soon. Take care.